Back in the beginning of this year, whenever I first started the garden, I told you guys that I would do a price comparison at the end of the year based on what I canned versus what I've spent on the garden this year. So I just got done writing down all the prices and like the comparisons of all the prices. So I have my notes here. It took a while to write all this down, but I wanted to get all the prices for you guys because I know some of you guys will want to see the prices and then some of you guys will just want the answer at the very end. So if you're looking for just the answer and you don't want to hear any of these prices, then go to the very end of this video, and if I can remember, I'll put a timestamp or something down below so you guys can just skip along. But I truly did not know that I canned this much stuff. This whole entire canning year, I kept a list in my notes on my phone, and it kept a running list of what I canned and how big the jar size was. So that was the only issue I came to with a lot of this stuff from the grocery store is some of the stuff that I canned, they didn't have, like peach pie filling. And I'll tell you that as I go down the list if they had it and like what I had to do. But for things for like green beans, I can those in quarts, but they don't sell quarts of that at the grocery store. So I just took 2 of the smaller cans and doubled the price. So that's what it'll say on here. But I'll try and explain that as I go. But we'll just go ahead and get right into what I canned and the price breakdown. So I canned 26 pints of dill pickles. And the way that I got the prices is based on what we already buy at the grocery store. So if I'm out of pickles, then I'm gonna go ahead and I wrote down the price for the exact same thing that we buy. So typically that is like the healthier option. And in that case for pickles, it's the Grillo's brand pickles. They come in the refrigerator section and they come in a plastic container, but they have fresh herbs and stuff like that in them, no preservatives. At least I don't think. They are $5.49, and so that would have cost $142.74 to buy that, which is absolutely insane to spend on pickles, but whenever we run out, those are the pickles that we buy. So last year we bought like 2 or 3 of those and they're really good, just really expensive. The next thing was 9 pints of strawberry preserves, and those were $4.49 at Kroger. So for the 9, that would have cost $40.41 to buy. And the next was 4 pints of strawberry syrup. That was $4.29 at the store. And then that would have cost $17.16 to buy. And I just want to say that we would not say that I did not can any of this and I need to go buy this stuff at the grocery store. I would not buy it all at once. Before I really started canning, we would buy a little bit every week, just pretty much like normal people grocery shop. So this is not what we would spend at one time. It's not like I would go and buy this all outright. It's just what we would buy over the course of a year. I have 9 cans of pickled banana peppers and they were $2.99 at the store. So that would have cost $26.91. I'm just going to keep running through this list. It's probably going to be pretty quick. So the next was 9 pints of pickled cauliflower. That was $2.99 at the store. So that would have costed $26.91, the same as the banana peppers. The pints of corn, again, the can is a little bit smaller, but I just went ahead and wrote down the price of what it was. So that is $1.79, and that would have cost $55.49. 11 pints of Rotel at $1.50 a can. It would have been $16.50. 15 pints of Italian diced tomatoes, $1.50 a can. That would have been $22.50. 10 pints of regular diced tomatoes, $1.50 a can, $15. 26 pints of tomato sauce at $1.50. That would have been $39. So this next was 5 pints of blackberries, and I do can our blackberries off of our blackberry vine. I didn't get very much this year because I actually was trying to dig starts for somebody and hit the taproot and actually killed half of my vines. So I did not get very many blackberries this year. But we did get 5 pints, and I didn't know how to price this out because it wouldn't really be technically fresh blackberries. So I just went and got the price of canned peaches. I didn't know what else to do. So I just said $1.79 a can, and that would have been $8.95. I know that price is probably not correct and a little off, but it is what it is. I just didn't have anything to compare it to just because they did not sell canned blackberries. The next is 18 quarts of green beans, and that is $3.58 a piece, but that's really doubled because they only sell it in like I believe it's like the 12-ounce cans or 14-ounce, whatever it is. So I just doubled that price. So it would really be like $1 something, but it was $3.58 by the time it's a quart to make it a quart. And that would have been $64.44. 18 pints of roasted tomato soup. That was $2.14. and the total would have been $38.52. 7 quarts of roasted tomato soup, that would have been $4.28 and $29.96. The half pints of ketchup and the half pints of barbecue sauce, I had to go on there and get the ounce size of the bottle and then break it down and do it that way, because each of these jars is 8 ounces. So I would like multiply how many jars I had and then divide it by the ounce bottle, which was 20 and 19. For 12 half pints of ketchup, for a 20-ounce bottle, it was $2.29. And by the time I did my math and broke it down, it would have costed $11.45 to buy the same amount of ketchup that I canned. I did the same kind of math with barbecue sauce, and it was $3.29 for a 19-ounce bottle. And for the same amount that I canned, it was $16.45. 3 quarts of pickled pepperoncinis, that was $6.29, and it would have costed $18.87. The next was 12 quarter pints of jalapenos. These are not pickled. These are like the little tiny jars that you can get, not jars, they're cans at Kroger. And whenever I buy them, they're not pickled. We just put them on food, but they are 89 cents for a little jar of it. And I did can those in quarter pints just so that they would be in like similar, because those are like the perfect size. We usually use those up in one recipe, so I wanted to stick with that. But that would have cost $10.68. 14 quarts of chili ready tomatoes at $2.50. Again, I put them in quarts, even though they come in a smaller jar at the store, so I just times the price by 2. So it brought it to $2.50 a can. And if I would have bought that, that would have been $35. 10 pints of manwich at $1.50 would be $15. 9 half pints of salsa verde at $1. They have dollar cans, so I just did $9. 8 pints of sun-dried olive oil tomatoes at $5.49 each, so that would have been $43.92. 12 quarts of salsa. I had to compare it to like fresh because it's fresh, so I did $4.29, and $51.48 is what that would have cost. My store did not even have tomato jam, so I just got the price of, I can't even remember what it was. It's some kind of like tomato preserves in a jar. So it was $4.49, and that would have brought the total to $44.90. Next was 7 quarts of diced tomatoes at $3, and that would have been $21. Next was 7 quarts of diced tomatoes at $3. That would have been $21. 11 quarts of cherry pie filling at $4.49. Again, it was a way smaller can than 32 ounces of a quart, so I just went ahead and took the smaller price and went with it. But $49.39. And then I ended up getting 1 pint of cherry pie filling, and that was $4.49 because it's the same size as a pint, but I just kept it the same. And that would have been $4.49. 11 quarter pints of cherry lemon jam. This is where I just had to grab the price of something similar on these last few items because they don't sell it in the store. So I just didn't know what to do. So I just grabbed the price of something similar. So on the quarter pints of cherry lemon jam, I did $3.24 a piece, and that would have been $35.64. And then pints, it would have been $6.49, and that would have made the total $19.47. 7 pints of cherry jam. They did have cherry jam, so I did get that price, and that's what I based all of this also off of, I'm pretty sure. So $6.49, and that would have been $45.43. 7 pints of cherry syrup. Again, they didn't have it, so I just had to get the price of something similar. So it was $3.49, and then $24.43. The 7 quarts of peach pie filling they didn't even have peach pie filling, so I got just a big can of peaches. That's just what I compared it to. That was $4.99, and that would have been $34.93. 2 pints of peach butter. Again, they did not have it, so I went and got the price from Apple Butter, and it was $6.29, so that would have cost $12.58. And then the same thing, I actually canned 2.5 pints so I canned 2 pints and then a half pint of cinnamon peach butter, but they didn't have it, so I just went and compared it to Apple Butter again. $6.29, so that would have cost $12.58. And then 9 pints of peach syrup, it would have been $3.49 a piece, and that would have brought it to $31.41. 15 quarts of roasted pasta sauce would have been $5.99. And that would have cost $89.85. And then 1 pint of roasted pasta sauce at $2.99 would have been $2.99. And then again, they did not have pumpkin butter, so I just compared it to the apple butter. And that was $6.29, and I had 5 pints of it, so it would have been $31.45 to buy. And then lastly was 12 pints of pumpkin puree at $2.49 a can. That would have been $29.88. So that is everything that I canned. And then I only froze 2 things. So I do not freeze much at all just because we save all of our freezer space for meat. So I did 3 quart bags of broccoli, and that was $3.29 a piece. So that would have been $9.87. And then I did 6 quart bags of shredded zucchini. And I don't know how many zucchinis fit in a bag, so I just guessed that it was 1. So at $1.15 a bag, that would have been $6.90. So the grocery store total, like if I would have bought all the food that I canned this year at the grocery store, it would have cost $1,263.53. But that is a huge chunk of money. And I know that that would be like spread out over the course of a year to pay that at the grocery store, but that just seems insane to me to spend that on food at the store. But it is very easily done in today's time. Everything is so expensive at the store anymore. So now I'll go through and tell you what I spent on food and plants. So on fresh produce, I actually have a notes app on my phone, and I can tell you exactly what I spent on each thing. I spent $20 for 40 pounds of cherries. I spent $18.75 on 1 box of peaches, and then $10 for 2 pumpkins. So that total was $49.15 that I spent on fresh produce. And then on plants, I did the same thing. Everything that I bought at the greenhouse this year, I kept a running tally of it in my phone so I can list them off, but I feel like that's very unnecessary. But I spent $115 on plants. But something that I did want to acknowledge is that I bought 60 tomato plants this year because mine did not make it. I started them as seeds and they did not come up. Well, they came up, but they died. On 60 tomato plants, I spent $43. But tomato products is something that I do can a lot of. So even though I spent $43 on tomato plants, and I remember going to the greenhouse and me and Ben both were like, whoa, $43 for tomato plants. Like it just seemed outrageous to us. But whenever you compare it to what you are saving money-wise, it really does not, it shouldn't even be a factor. Like we should not question buying those plants for $43 because the payoff is beyond. On tomato products, if I would have bought them at the grocery store with everything that I can, I would have spent $502.52. And I did not even can all the tomatoes that we grew this year. I gave away, I don't even know how many 5-gallon buckets of tomatoes this year. I know I gave at least 5-gallon buckets full of tomatoes away, and that would have made a lot of pasta sauce or something else, but we honestly did not need it. Like we have some left in the cellar from last year, and then I added what we needed to this year just to get us through. And it's just insane to me that $43 seemed like so much at the time, but then in the long run, it does pay off because I'm not spending $502.52 at the grocery store. So I would rather spend what I thought was a lot up front at the greenhouse, even though it wasn't really that much in the end. And on our garden, we do not buy compost or anything like that. We have cows. We do all of that composting ourselves. So we're not spending money on dirt, compost, topsoil, anything like that. We're not having to do that. So that does save us a lot of money. I know that a lot of people do have to replenish their garden every year, and we do add to our garden every year, but we build up the soil and stuff with cow manure and stuff like that. But we do not have to spend any money on that. It's just free. We have tons of it. So we just put it all on the garden and we spread it on the fields. We spread it on everything. That is a huge cost factor that we do not have to factor in at all. The biggest cost for us is the greenhouse, buying plants, and then buying the fresh produce that we do not grow. So something that is not ready, and I forgot to talk about because we did grow potatoes this year, and let me see if I can find my notes on it. This year on white seed potatoes, so that was just Kennebec potatoes, we spent $4. And we ended up getting at least 50 pounds. I'll say 50 pounds. It was a little more than that, but I'll say 50 pounds to just be on the safe side. So we turned 4 pounds and $4 into 50 pounds of potatoes. That is amazing. And then for 5 pounds of red seed potatoes, I believe those were Pontiacs They were $5. So all potatoes are like $1 a pound. That's the going price around here. But we ended up turning that into about 30 pounds, I would say. Another thing that we did spend quite a bit of money on was $9 for 25 sweet potato slips. And we still have not dug our sweet potatoes. We tried digging them just 2 weeks ago or so. But we have had only about an inch of rain in the past 2 months. So it has been incredibly dry and our sweet potatoes have not done anything. We dug them and they were so tiny. So we are leaving them. We've been setting up the sprinkler, trying to get them to do something. I'm not sure if it's a lost cause or not, but I can update you guys if we do end up getting any sweet potatoes or not. But the only other thing that I would probably buy this year, and I wanted to go ahead and get this video out for you guys, but it'll probably be 3 or 4 weeks before I ever buy them, just because I like to buy them whenever they're cheaper. After everybody's got their fresh apples, I like to buy them whenever they're more on sale. But I do want to get some apples, but like I said, I want to buy them whenever they're cheaper, a little bit later in the season. But I just plan on making some apple butter, apple pie filling, probably some applesauce, stuff like that. Just your basic apple stuff. But other than that, our canning is done and our garden is done. We're just waiting on those sweet potatoes to see if they do anything, but we've mowed it all off and it's completely done now. Overall, I would say that a garden is well beyond worth it. You get your return times 10, I feel like. So I think that if you are able to grow a garden, and maybe you can even get your kids involved if you have kids, then it does work out in the end. And it is a huge money saver for us, because it saved us in the long run about $1,000. And something that I did not factor into this, but I feel like kind of needs to be talked about, is the electric. And in my busiest canning months, so that would have been probably June and July and a couple weeks in August, not really much in August. I did most of my canning really early just because we put out our garden so early. We only had one really high electric bill, and I noticed that, but I would say in that month, it was probably about $75 higher. So I'm not sure if it was the air conditioners working overtime or if it was the stove. So I really do not know, but I would venture to say that by the time it was all said and done, we did have maybe an extra $100 in the electric bill between the 3 months. And then something else that does require a lot is all of the jams, jellies, syrups. So sugar is another big cost, and I get mine, I believe it's $58 or maybe $62 for a 50-pound bag. And I did buy another bag not too long ago, probably 3 weeks ago, but I had 5-gallon buckets already. So I really have no idea how much sugar I used, but I would venture to say it was close to a 50-pound bag. So probably maybe 160 need to be calculated in for like your lemon juice, citric acid if you use it, sugar. I don't use pectin. I don't use the clear gel. So it's based on whatever you use, but you do have to factor in those small costs and then the electric bill also. So I would say an extra $200, but still, even if you do the math, that's still $800 that you're saving. And that is amazing in my opinion, just because you know what you're getting in your food. There's no question about it. You don't have to worry about what was put on it. Is it really organic? What did they use? And you don't have to read the ingredient label. You know what you put in it. So you have that peace of mind. But I will forever plan on canning as long as I'm able to. I do enjoy it and I do think it's worth it. But that is going to be it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys will like and subscribe.